Hi, BookTube. Welcome to a Sideline. This is going to be a very rare opportunity. If you've watched my BookTube newbie video, that seems a long time ago, that video. But way back then, I warned all my potential viewers, subscribers, that they really weren't going to get any TBR list videos or book hauls or book unhauls. And there's a reason. I just really think it's more important to talk about books once you've read them or while you are reading them. That's when you have something significant to say about the book. And so if I've read and I've talked about a book also, then I don't see any reason to revisit that book unless it relates in some highly significant way to a new book that I've got underway or I've just finished. But today, as you'll see, we're going to make an exception. If I sound a little bit, what's the word? As if my voice is somehow sunk deeper down a little bit. I have come down with some kind of cough. And it's probably good that I record in clips because sometimes I get a tickle and there's nothing I can do about it and nothing I can do to stop the cough. So these little clips might be a survival tool. Anyway, point of this video. On the 31st of October, I finished, and I've probably bored you to death by telling you that I finished a year-long Read What You Own challenge. And as a reward for following all my rules for a whole year, I decided that for the first week of November, there weren't going to be any rules. I was going to be completely free. And that might sound dangerous, but there was no danger that I would undo all the good work that I'd done over 12 months and buy some crazy amount of books that would just make my messy bookshelves exactly as messy or even more messy than they were before I started the challenge. There was no danger because during the first week of November, myself and the person who watches television, we traveled up to Scotland. Specifically, we went to Linlithgow, which is a small town, a sort of commuter town to the northwest-ish of Edinburgh, not very far. Beautiful little place. The scene that you see here, this is the castle. Linlithgow was a royal town, and this castle was the home to the Scottish Stuart monarchs. Famously also Mary, Queen of Scots, grew up in the castle. It is obviously needing repairs at the moment, given its age, but it was a beautiful little town, and we also stayed in a beautiful little cottage. It was actually a converted stable block, but you could not tell. And even though we were so close to the main road, it was so quiet and peaceful because of the way the cottage was set within some very mature and well looked after gardens, and there was lots of old stone walling. Absolutely beautiful little place. I'll leave a link to the cottage website because the owners were wonderful hosts, and so I don't think they'd mind a bit of free publicity. So we did not drive to our destination, and that's the key thing, right? We took the train. So the journey took about 5 hours in total, but it was a lot less tiring than driving would have been. We needed to pack warm clothing, which is always bulky, and as I am the one who has the younger knees and the younger backbone, it was me that was going to do any heavy lifting required. And also, I do not own an e-reader, and I have thought about it, and I might do another video about this, but I don't plan to acquire one. I have the Kindle app on my mobile and on my laptop, but Amazon will only allow me to buy books from my laptop, and I did not bring my laptop with me during that week. Okay, so now you can see the factors which ensured that I was going to keep my book buying sensible. Today's haul is only 7 books. That's it. 7. Now, that's amusing me, that number actually as well. And so I'll tell you about that when I talk about the first book. Okay, so let's get another cool photograph of the entrance to the castle up, and we'll talk about this first book. The first book that I bought literally first thing in the morning on the 1st of November, and that was before we left home. So I bought the Kindle version of Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain. Okay, there's much that can be said about Thomas Mann and this novel. It's an immense book in terms of its size and in terms of its scope. If you have ever thought or been influenced by another booktuber to read Thomas Mann, and you're thinking, oh, and you're a little intimidated, and rightly you should be, then I would recommend a BookTube creator who's producing a very helpful set of videos about the Magic Mountain. His name is David. He has a general BookTube channel called Polyglot Reader. Polyglot Reading. I always get that wrong. But he has a second channel specifically for Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, and that is called the Thomas Mann Project. So if you look up, I'll put a link in my description box to that channel. David speaks German, obviously that's his first language, but he also speaks English, French, Italian, and Yiddish, and he produces material in all those languages. So as far as I'm aware, his is a unique offering on BookTube. I don't know of anyone else who can take in hand a work not originally written in English and therefore give you insights culturally and linguistically that can only come from somebody who understands the language the book was originally written in. And so please check out the links in my description box. This is one of those, as far as I'm concerned, David's channels are one of those must subscribe channels. David began his videos about the Magic Mountain in August. Our county library system, that is my county library system, they had one copy of Thomas Mann's novel in storage, in archive storage. And so I put in a request to borrow that. And what I got was this, let me show you this, I brought this little hardback volume, and I'm going to be really careful with it because you can see the spine has, This little book is 92 years old, so it's not that much younger than The Magic Mountain itself, which this year turned 100. It's been in publication 100 years. So this was not just any old 92-year-old book. This was the first English translation of The Magic Mountain. So I got this so excited. I thought, yes, I'm going to keep up with all David's videos. I'm going to be very good. But I just got too ambitious. And I never thought that I would fall victim to that. Oh, I need to keep up with something, knowing that I probably am not able to keep up. I did in this instance. I tried very, very hard to fit in the Magic Mountain with everything else that I was trying to do for the challenge, and it was too early, just a little too early. But I was absolutely determined that as soon as I could break free from other constraints, and in particular because this is a very long book, this is 900 pages, I knew I really couldn't tackle it with all the other long books I had that I was trying to get through already. So anyway, I have started reading this now. You'll see the bookmark. David, this is just to show you I am halfway. I am at the beginning of chapter 6. It's amazing. This book only has 7 chapters. There's the number 7 again. We are going to talk about this number 7. There are 7 chapters. Half of the book is 5 of the chapters, and half of the book is 2. Yeah, this book will do all kinds of things to your head. I want to talk about it more. I have suspicions that there's almost something magical about the book itself. That certainly if you know about Hermetic alchemy, which was a thing in the 19th century and a little bit of a thing in 20th century neo-paganism, you'll know that there's enough hinting at that in this book and enough sort of weird stuff for you to start to feel that the book is having some kind of strange effect on you. The fact that I bought 7 books in my book haul, that seemed a bit strange. The fact that I came down with a cough while I was reading it also seemed strange. I don't believe there was anything else that happened to me that started to make me think this book is doing stuff to me. That's very, very weird. But I don't know if anybody else has ever read The Magic Mountain and thought, wait a second. Is there something else that's happening outside the book as well as inside the book? Very strange, but I'm definitely enjoying this. So you will get a video when I've finished. It will not be a review because this is not a book that I would have to read it at least 3 times before I would feel that, okay, now we talk. And one reading would have to be quite slow and studied. I am going fairly slowly, but nevertheless, this book is, I thought George Eliot could pack a lot into a book. Well, so can Thomas Mann. It turns out, so can Thomas Mann. What I didn't explain, but I hope it's kind of obvious, is why I bought the Kindle version of The Magic Mountain when I already had the library hardback copy and still do. And that's purely because I was afraid to take that 92-year-old book anywhere. I was afraid of losing it or damaging it more. I don't know what it might be worth, even in its condition, just given what it is. I was amazed that the library was still holding on to that. Anyway, on to book number 2 in our book haul, which is Oscar and the Lady in Pink by Eric Emmanuel Schmidt. This is a picture of Eric. He is a Belgian playwright. He's a short story writer. He's a film director. And this is a very slender little book. It's just 88 pages long. It was published in 2002, translated into English in 2005, and internationally it sold over 1 million copies. Now, the back cover write-up uses the word fable, so all of that was starting to remind me, skinny little book, really, really sells well, is kind of a fable, and I suddenly thought, hey, that's like Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Now, I don't think this is exactly like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but I think it's heading into that territory of being parable fiction. And I'm always interested in those books because it's often those little short stories that really grab people and also capture the spirit of the times, I find too. Certainly Jonathan Livingston Seagull did, Who Moved My Cheese did, and be interesting to see how Oscar and the Lady might be a product of its time. So, look out for a review of that. I'll let you know. So book number 3, let's put the cover up. Oreo. That was, you can't not want to buy a book with a cover that looks like that. I just immediately, the cookie comes to mind. But there's more going on here, of course. The author, Fran Ross, she published this book at a small publishing house in 1974. So there wasn't really the publicity machinery to make a lot of it, and it really never sold a great deal. This is actually a republished edition. And Fran Ross also only died, she died in 1985. She was only 50 years old. So all of this is starting to make me feel a little bit like I did with Kamala Markandeya and Nectar in a Sieve. This idea of a female, non-white writer who, because in the early 70s, there just seemed to be something about the early 70s that, and I'm surprised because when I think of the early 70s, I think of my growing up and I think of Sesame Street, the first Sesame Street, which that whole program was trying so hard to portray America as a successfully integrated society. And wow, now that I'm older, I think nothing could have been further from the truth. And maybe Oreo has something to say about that. At any rate, I as soon as I realized that this was a rescued piece of fiction, something that had gone into obscurity and was now being republished and represented to the public, I thought, okay, I need to know about this book. So Oreo, we picked it up, we're going to read it. You probably won't have to wait long for this one. I'm thinking maybe before the end of the year, I'd like to know what's going on inside the covers of this one. Right, book number 4. Well, it could be added to my winning title list of books because the only reason I pulled this off the shelf, and I can remember I was in the Waterstones in Sochi Street in Glasgow. That's where I was. And the only reason I pulled this book out was because of the title and I suppose a little bit the cover art. The cover art looked mischievous and subversive. I love this. And it also a bit too chaotic maybe. This is Vulgarian Rhapsody by Alvin Orlov. And obviously the title is a play on Bohemian Rhapsody. This was published in 2023, so it's quite a recent book, and it's called a novel, but I noticed that a couple of the chapters originally appeared as short stories in other publications. It's set in 1990s Chicago. Not Chicago, 1990 San Francisco, okay? And it's just as the dot-com boom is happening, which means that property is being bought up and the vanilla of gentrification is starting to push out all the more flavorful and eccentric queer neighborhoods. And so this one just got me excited. I just thought, okay, this sounds like it could be a bit comic. The cover graphics suggest it will be. But also, I think there's going to be something serious in it. The front cover thing that reads, "Drag bars, cocktails, queer bohemia. Now is not the time to get old." So, immediately I just thought, yeah, this is going to be a bit raucous. And I thought, yeah, I need a bit of that. I need a bit of that. Everything else seemed a little bit serious that I've been reading, so I was looking for something that would make me laugh. Book number 5. Let's put it up on screen. My Bones and My Flute, or as the subtitle says, a ghost story in the old-fashioned manner. That was one of the first things that drew me to it. I thought I do need to try something scary. It's not going to kill me. There must be something. And I also hadn't heard of the author, and I did a little bit of research, and I found out that this is yet another lost work that has been reclaimed. The novel was first published in 1951, but it went out of print in the early 70s, and that was it. And it was finally republished again in 2015, and that's the copy that you can see now. Edgar Mittelholzer was born in Guyana. Now, that's a piece of the South American coast that is known Dutch, French, and English colonial rule. Edgar was born in 1909. He had a German father and an English mother, but his skin tone was darker than either of his parents. And at the time, well, in fact, I would like to let Edgar speak for himself, because he wrote an autobiography about his very difficult childhood, which we called The Swarthy Boy. And I think what I'd like to do when I get round to the point where I want to read My Bones and My Flute, I think I would also like a copy of that autobiography and like to read them alongside each other. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Before we do book number 6, this is another castle, a much more familiar one. I'm sure that I'm not the first person to post a picture of Edinburgh Castle. Can't remember, we were there on last Monday and we went back again on Friday. There's too much to see. There's too much to see in Edinburgh. You could do a whole week of just Edinburgh, and even then you wouldn't run out of Edinburgh, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, let's look at the next book. This next book, by the way, I feel sorry for authors whose surnames begin with the letter Z, because unless somebody chooses to display their books in a way that puts the cover right at your eye level when you're standing, then you know that either the work is going to be up on one of the very, very top shelves in bookcases, or worse, way down at the bottom, where you have to squat or kneel, and that's always, I find that really uncomfortable. I don't like doing that in a bookstore. It takes you ages to get yourself all back up again. So I decided to be very deliberate, and I went to look for fiction written by authors with surnames beginning with Z. And I found a gem. I found something that quite extraordinary that I didn't know existed. And this is the author's picture, and this is the book. The Decameron by Maxim Znak. Now, Maxim Znak is an international lawyer and a prominent member of the Belarusian resistance movement. Okay? In 2020, he was arrested. This happens a lot to anyone who opposes the Belarusian government. While being held in a pre-custody center awaiting his sentence, Maxim wrote 100 very, very short tales about prison life, and these were smuggled out to the West for publication. Now, since February 2023, Maxim has been denied any communication with his family or with any friends or advisors, and so no one is sure right now what he is going through. I bought the book after reading short story number 100. I went to the back, just to show I do that now and again. It won't be an easy read, this book, it's true, but I really wanted to know, how could someone still be creative in a situation like this? I believe it was said in the write-up to the book on the back that he did it to keep his sanity, and I thought, well, is that enough? Is that enough to just write some nice stories while I'm in prison? Will that do it? I don't know, but I just felt that I had to buy the book, and I also wondered whether buying it might in some way support his family or any legal team that might be trying to help get him better treatment. I don't know if release is even on the cards, but I thought, well, I'm willing to go for better treatment if that's possible. And so, yeah, I am, though, looking forward to reading it. I do think sometimes books written in the worst situations, if they can say something positive, then you know there must be a way. I guess that's all I can say about that one. I've just realized this this book haul has got to be it's a lot of heavy reading. I don't know if it's the heaviest. I'm sure some people have come up with heavier reading, but I do have something a little bit lighter and more joyful, and I thought I'd leave that till the end just so that you didn't despair of me. And I wanted to show you this book, Why We Sing, by Julia Hollander. I am indebted to Gareth at Books, Songs and Other Magic, so of course he's going to get a shout out here and in my description box, because he introduced me to this book and it went on my Read What I Own wish list on Amazon, and I remembered it. And when I was in the Waterstones in Princess Street in Edinburgh, and I was killing time, and it was our last day, we were going to get packed up the next day and all that jazz and do laundry and boring stuff, and I thought, oh, I had already bought 6 books. I thought that was a bit extravagant. But then I saw the cover, with all its lovely colors, and I suppose I just thought, oh, just one more book. And then, I've got to get back to being well-behaved again. I'm really looking forward to this. So Julia is a singing performer, and she's a therapist, she's a teacher, so she's done all her own research into the reasons why we sing and why it benefits us and why it works the way it does in our brain. Why, for example, and this happens to me, I struggle to remember passwords. The only passwords I can remember are song lyrics, and then, of course, I can remember whole lines, no problem, as we probably all can. Why? Why can I not remember any other strings of characters and so on, but I can remember songs? And singing acts differently in the brain, and so she's going to look at that. And it's the first book I've ever encountered also, and I didn't take a photo of the back cover. Maybe, I don't know if I can show it on here. Yeah, here's the book. Can you see the QR code? This book comes with its own playlist. That is so cool. So I'm going to have to play that and try and read at the same time. I don't know how that's supposed to work. I'll let you know. When I've read it, we'll have a fun little review, and we'll talk about what you get to do with that playlist. And that's a wrap, everybody. I have not scripted this ending, so it could go on, or maybe I will figure out how to close off a video without some notes. How will I do that? Well, I will just say, I know you were expecting a Middlemarch meditation, because I promised one. And I do have one almost written, and the only reason I did not record that now instead of this is because of my cough. Because I tend to get more carried away talking with Middlemarch meditation, and I thought I'm going to lose my voice or something. So I'm going to give that just a little bit more time. Don't worry, though, because another thing I have in mind, I'm thinking, because I'm getting such fantastic reactions from people about the Middlemarch meditations. I'm getting people emailing me and saying, thank you for doing the meditations. I was really struggling with George Eliot's novel. I didn't think I could read it. I thought I was reading it slowly enough, and then I started listening to the meditations, and I thought, oh, that slowly. And so a lot of people who were finding Middlemarch difficult are suddenly realizing what can be got out of it. And I just thought, wow. And this one person who emailed me, her name is Sandra. So Sandra, this is your shout out. I'll try and put your channel name in my description box so you know that I'm mentioning you. But thank you for that email. What I am thinking I should perhaps do going forward is increase the number of Middlemarch meditations. You only usually get one per month. And I'm thinking it would help me to read longer books. No bad thing. If I did 2 meditations in a month and just give me a bit more reading time in the background. Because Middlemarch meditations is more deep diving into picky little words and sentences, and I can do that and get reading done. So that's really on my mind to try to do that. So why don't I just commit here and now in this video and say I am going to attempt to do that from this month forward, and we shall see how it goes, okay? Right, that's enough now. Need to shut up so you can get on. Been good to talk to you again. See you at the weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.